Waiting for the connection.
No worries.
There we go. All right. Good morning, everyone. We are back. We are day three with uh, day three. Day three. Yes, day three of She's Me conference. I'm sorry, we've been going all week. But the conference kicked off on Wednesday. Today is day three. And we are so honored this morning to have Thea Lissi with us this morning. Thank you, Thea, for being with us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
All right, I'm going to get out of your way. Have a
Uh,
good session.
Thank you. All right. Yes. Again, my name is Thea Lissi, and today I'm going to be speaking about Feel, Heal, Thrive, which is a framework that I developed a few years back when going through my own healing journey. And this is actually my first time speaking about this topic publicly. And so I'm really excited, and I hope that you'll see that your scars are not the ending, they're the soil where thriving begins. And most of my notes will be on screen on the slides, so you can read and follow along as well. And I hope that you enjoy it. So before we get started, most of us are taught at a young age to suppress negative emotions, and therefore we don't actually allow ourselves to feel the pain that has been buried deep inside. Consequently, we aren't truly thriving in our lives, which is where I had found myself and still do sometimes. So my questions that I had for myself that you might also have often were, how do we find true healing? How can we allow ourselves to feel without feeling like we're getting stuck there? How do we move past these hurts to really flourish in the life that God has for us? And many more questions, but those are just some of the questions that I hope to help you answer. And my prayer is that you hear my story and you'll gain confidence to stop numbing, start healing, and let God breathe new life into the places that once felt broken. So to get started, a little bit about me and my background. My early childhood, I grew up in South Louisiana as one of 11 kids, which is a lot of kids, as you can imagine. And I was the middle child. I grew up experiencing all types of abuse, poverty, neglect, secrecy, and instability. Um, and without going too, deep into the details of that, I think that kind of paints a pretty good picture of what that childhood looked like. The first hair in that facade of the secrecy that we all held was when I was 9 years old. My dad was charged with sexual battery and molestation of a juvenile. He, of course, denied those charges, and the trial went on for 5 years or so until he was found guilty. He was then sentenced to 3 years in prison. And I was a freshman at that time in high school. And then he was released my senior year, right before I graduated high school. And then whenever I was 19 years old, um, me and my siblings all received a text from my dad saying, "I love you and forgive you," only to find out the following day that he had committed suicide. Um, and so, in these kind of relationships, even though was very abusive and had done all of these horrible things, it's just still my dad. And so, that was a struggle and a really hard time in general, battling with all the different emotions and feelings that I felt in that time. And then while coping with that loss, I also lost my last two living grandparents. They passed away all within 6 months of my dad also passing away. So it was just, a storm of grief, basically. And all of these things really planted deep roots of guilt, fear, and shame, and fear of abandonment. And I learned really early on how to suppress my feelings and needs and pretend everything was fine, which many of you may also relate to. I know it's very common in the South, but I think it's just common in this generation in general, to just suppress, anything that we deem negative as an emotion. And then fresh out of high school, I busied myself. I had four jobs, full-time college student. I was partying, whenever I wasn't at work or doing schoolwork and things like that. And basically, I was doing anything I could to suppress the emotions and not face that pain. And then there was a big turning point for me, was becoming a single mother. So one thing led to another with the lifestyle that, I was living at that time. And I found myself pregnant at 20 years old after a one-night stand. And obviously that relationship was not a thriving relationship to be together, but we co-parent very well, luckily. But at that point, I was determined to ensure that my daughter wouldn't experience the trauma and abuse that I did. And so I knew I needed to turn my life around and create a better environment for her to grow up in. And I did in a lot of ways. I started going back to church. I opened my dance studio business at 23 years old. I eventually got married to a man that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with at 24. But I was still experiencing broken relationships because the problem was I still wasn't allowing myself to feel and process any of the trauma from the past. I just kept pushing it down, pushing it down, and pushing it down. And unfortunately, my ex-husband was also a push it down and keep it moving kind of guy, and wouldn't allow me to talk about any of the things that I experienced. And anytime I tried to open up, he would shut it down. And that's something I think when you start to open up, about traumatic things, some people just aren't ready to hold space for you yet. And that was very apparent in this situation. But this led to severe anxiety and depression, and ultimately feeling the loneliest I had ever felt in my life. And I thought I was doing all the right things, yet somehow it seemed like I was getting it all wrong. And so, sorry guys, whenever I get nervous, I get thirsty. So that led me to my aha moment. All of these experiences ultimately led me to my most transformative time of my life, which was a month-long healing retreat in Costa Rica. It was December of 2019, and I was ready to end my marriage. I had for years tried everything possible that I could think of: therapy, marriage books, time apart, you name it. At first, he wasn't willing to try any of it, and then I left, and then he wanted to try all of it, and we did, and went back and forth for about 2 years, and then after that 2 years of trying, where he was also trying everything to make our marriage work, we came to this point. And so I went to this retreat. There was indigenous ceremonies and practices that were foreign to me, never heard of, never tried, and they were intimidating. And it definitely pushed me far beyond the boundaries and of my comfort zone and what I was used to, or what I thought was normal for therapy at that time. And within the first few days, the urge to flee back to familiarity was strong, but I was determined to find healing in hopes of it being like the missing piece to fixing my marriage, because I thought maybe if I heal from all of my childhood trauma and, I fix me, then I'll be able to, love him again, and, our marriage will be fine, and I'll be able to believe that he's really changed, and, all of these things that I had told myself. But it was this retreat that really set the spark in me to start feeling again, to process the pain, no matter how difficult it might be. And after that retreat, I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were anymore. And for once, I didn't want to. I filed for divorce, and I started the journey to finding myself again, to start feeling again, and ultimately start healing. And I don't know about you guys, but if you relate to this in this sense, a lot of times we can lose ourselves in a relationship, whether it's toxic or, manipulation, any types of abuse or anything like that. It's really easy to lose yourself. And I had definitely lost myself in that relationship, for many different reasons. But this process is what inspired me to start writing music and singing, as I was finding myself and trying to figure out what I enjoyed doing, different hobbies and things like that. And singing and wasn't anything that I ever thought I would be good at, especially at the age of, I believe I was 29 at the time, and so started doing that as a form of therapy, loved it, still love it. And this process was also when I started writing my book, Feel, Heal, Thrive, and built the framework we'll be discussing today. And hopefully one day I will actually release this book, but I've done my best to try and put the meat and potatoes into today's session. So first phase of this framework is feel. And the human experience is rich with emotions, but society often teaches us to shy away from the darker shades of our emotional palette: pain, sadness, anger, hurt, or feelings we instinctively recoil from, opting to suppress them instead, in hopes that they'll dissipate. And that just simply doesn't work. And I like to think of it as if you were driving a windshield with a crack on the windshield, and driving just with one crack, maybe it'll be fine. It might not disturb your vision too much. But if you don't get it fixed, that one crack will continue to grow and spread. And if you've ever had a crack on your windshield, them things spread fast. And so then life happens and another crack hits your windshield, leaving in an even bigger mark, and continues to grow as well. And eventually you won't be able to see through the windshield if you let this keep spreading and growing. And so driving in this condition, you won't be able to see through the windshield, right, anymore. So you won't be able to get to the destination where you're going. You could put your life in danger. You could put other lives in danger. And ultimately, like I mentioned, there's no way you'll end up where you intended to go when you can't even see clearly. And so what happens when we ignore these signs is much like driving a car with a cracked windshield, ignoring these initial signals of damage, which are our emotions telling us, trying to tell us something. It only leads to a greater damage over time. Each suppressed emotion acts as another crack in the windshield, obstructing our view and steering us farther from our intended path. This accumulation of unaddressed emotional wounds can cloud your judgment, hinder relationships, prevent us from thriving in life. And for me, it was doing all of those things. And conversely, though, allowing ourselves to feel can be likened to repairing a damaged windshield. It may come at a cost, especially these days. Everything is expensive, but such as investing time and resources into therapy, emotions, like in facing those emotions head on. But the long-term benefits far outweigh the temporary challenges. And so by embracing our emotions without haste, we embark on a journey toward healing and acceptance, ultimately leading to a life of freedom and clarity. And that's my hope for everyone listening. So first, we'll talk about a few healthy ways to feel and process emotions, because as we all know, there are unhealthy ways to express and process emotions, but there's also healthy ways to do that. So these are just a few of the ways that I've found that have worked for me. One is naming the emotion honestly. When you name the emotion, it gives it boundaries, and it's no longer this big cloud hovering over you. It becomes something specific you can work with, which is something that really helps me, because I like to understand the whys of things, and if you have trouble identifying what emotion you are feeling, you can try using tools like a feelings wheel, which I have pictured on this screen here. There's many different ones that you can find online. If you would like this specific one, I'd be happy to send it to you. But it's helped me a lot, because sometimes I feel like I know I'm feeling something, but I just can't quite put into words and express how I'm feeling. And so this feeling wheel really has been a great asset for me in that way. And when we're doing this, try to avoid saying things like I am angry. Instead, say I'm feeling anger, or I don't say I am sad. Try to say I'm feeling sadness, because that helps us to not attach our identity to this emotion and claim it as ours. It is a fleeting feeling if we allow it to be fleeting. And then next would be to notice where it lives in your body. I believe that your body keeps the score. It remembers what your mind tries to forget. So noticing where that emotion lives is how we can start to release it. Ask yourself, where do I feel this? Is my chest tight? Is there pressure behind my eyes? Is my stomach in knots? Is my jaw clenched? Am I thirsty? Because that's, nervousness is an emotion, and this is how my body reacts, I guess. That's just a silly way of representing that, but you guys get it. So don't try to fix it, just notice it. Be curious, not judgmental. Avoid labeling it good or bad, which is something I've always struggled with and still do. I think it's a constant reminder that we need that just because it's a negative emotion doesn't make it a bad emotion. Our emotions are, like we talked about before, signals. It's trying to tell us something. The next thing would be to breathe and allow it. Once you've named it and noticed it, allow yourself to fully feel it. Take a slow breath in through your nose, out through your mouth, maybe even close your eyes, and imagine that that breath is going to that exact place in your body where you feel it. Sit with this emotion for a moment until it loosens its grip. Then imagine this emotion leaving and clearing your body. And this practice for me has been such a great practice. I was going through like a little breakup, a while back, and I am so used to just like holding it all in. I don't talk to people about things, and I tend to, just like keep it all to myself. And so I was talking to one of my sisters about it, and she's also very deep in her healing journey and all of this. And she actually walked me through this process of feeling what I was feeling instead of suppressing it. And I cried and, couldn't breathe through my nose and just ugly cried, but after I felt so much better, and I was like, man, I needed that. Imagine if I would have just kept that in and let it fester, so that's one of my favorite ones out of all of these. And then we have some more, taking it to the healer. I'm sorry. Don't get stuck in phase one. Surrender by looking up. For me, my healing journey has been deeply spiritual. But no matter what your background or beliefs are, I hope that you take what resonates for you in this next section. For me, it's looking up to God. But whether you call it faith, intuition, peace, love, or divine guidance, the heart of this message is about finding hope and healing from the inside out. So the first step that I find in bringing it to the healer, in my case, I believe is God, is bringing it to him in prayer. And this is the part where feeling becomes healing. Once the emotion is named and released, and then you can open space for God to speak hope and truth back into those places. God invites you to cast your cares and not carry them alone. So there's a few scriptures that I have here for that back this idea is cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. The next one is to lament and weep if and when needed. This is one that I really love digging into. I recently did a inner healing, I guess you could call it Bible study, and lamenting was a part of that process, and it really was helpful for me. The act of lamenting is just a way of acknowledging and processing pain, loss, grief, sorrow, or misfortune. It can be an outward expression like crying, wailing, or composing a poem or song, or a deep internal feeling of pain or sadness that is simply acknowledged and felt. And I believe also should be brought to God, because ultimately he knows. He's just waiting for us to bring it to him. And this is just between you and God only. It's not, it doesn't need to be something publicly, and probably shouldn't be, but it's just a way of you expressing these feelings and letting them be released from your body. And in scripture, Matthew 5:4, he says that blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. The next one would be receive God's comfort and peace. As you process your feelings, invite God into the mess. He meets you with his presence. His comfort and peace are a gift that he's just waiting for you to receive. And all we have to do is receive it. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit, is what Psalm says in 34:18. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds, Philippians 4:7. There's so many more scriptures that can back each of these topics and concepts, but these are just a few. So while feeling is a critical step in the journey, in the healing journey, it is meant to be transit. The goal isn't to pitch your tent in the pain, it's to pass through it. You can only heal if you allow yourself to first feel. However, I think it's important to know that you can feel and not heal if you remain in phase one. So if we get stuck in our feelings and don't allow them to be released and God to restore that and allow ourselves to heal, we can absolutely get stuck there. So it's imperative to process beyond this stage, to release the pain after fully acknowledging it, and to prepare yourself for the next phase, which is healing. So we feel, that's our awareness of those emotions, bringing them to light. Heal, that's where the transformation happens. And then we will get into where we are going to thrive. And that's where we find freedom from our pain and our trauma and all of these things that we've experienced in life. So healing from trauma is a journey that unfolds over time, not a destination you can simply arrive at overnight. A pivotal step towards healing is acknowledging that you need it. Acceptance is the action of consenting to receive or undertake something that is offered. So first, we have to accept it, that and get on this journey, accept that we need to be on this journey. And healing is also, it's not a scarce resource hidden away for the select few. It's abundantly available for all who seek it. And God is just waiting to give it to us. It's a process of sifting through layers of emotions to uncover any emotional debris lurking beneath the surface. And I have this little quote beneath, and it's that your pain doesn't disqualify you, it prepares you. And I like to think that my life can maybe be an example of that, that my pain is what has actually qualified me to speak about this, topic, and has prepared me to speak about it. So if there is anything beautiful in the mess, that's something that I find beautiful in it all. So next, I want to talk about healing from the inside out. I'm really big into naturopath, ways of doctrine, finding healing, sicknesses and things like that. And I follow a Dr. Barbara O'Neill. And she was talking about a man she treated who had tetanus infection. And she said how tetanus can only take hold of the body if there's a deep wound that's sealed on the outside, but hasn't healed on the inside. And on the surface of this man's wound, it looked fine, but underneath, the infection was spreading. If she wouldn't have helped him by essentially reopening the wound and healing it from the inside out, the infection would have kept spreading and, likely could have taken his life, would have affected, his entire body. And in that moment, although she was just talking about a tetanus infection, I realized that trauma works the same way. We can cover it up with smiles, success, busyness, looking healed on the outside. But if we never allow ourselves to really feel and heal, the infection spreads. And so we have to reopen those wounds sometimes, to dig deep, because healing from the inside out often looks worse before it looks better. It's painful, it's messy, it's vulnerable, but it's the only way to stop the infection of bitterness, shame, hurt, and any unprocessed emotion from spreading. So that's kind of what this Feel, Heal, Thrive process is about. It's about reopening those wounds, digging deep, and really getting into the core and the start and the source of where this pain is, so that it can't keep affecting our lives. Another thing is, I didn't even write this on here because I wasn't sure if I was going to speak about it, but whenever I was on that retreat, one of the leaders, Chrissy, talked about hoocha, is what she called it. And this was really impactful for me. And I think it is a really great representation of what happens when we don't heal from the inside out and when we keep those things and keep suppressing them. And so she talked about hoocha in the way of, she drew a little stick figure, and I wish I had it right here for you. And she said, this is you. And then around you, this is like your space, your bubble, we'll call it. And she drew little X's all around this person. And she said, like, each time someone has hurt you or betrayed you, whatever it is, each X represents that, right? And it's all around you. And when we don't heal those parts and we don't process those emotions, they stay there. So then you meet another person that also has their unprocessed emotions and pain and trauma, right? And just imagine these little dings all around them. So they say something to you that maybe they don't mean in a hurtful way, but then it's coming and it's reacting off of this trigger point, which is just an unprocessed wound from your childhood. And then you're going to react to that. And then it's going to go back to them and deflect off of something that they've had that they didn't process. And so we're just sitting here hurting and harming each other, which I think happens a lot of times in really personal relationships, where we can't seem to get past certain things or figure out why we're being affected so deeply by something that is seemingly not that big of a deal, and it's because we have all of this hoocha all around us that we haven't processed. And so until we start healing and processing that, then it's really hard to have healthy relationships where we can not be reactive to someone and instead be receptive of them and understanding, and then have healthy conversations where we can express our emotions in a healthy way. If they do say anything that is hurtful, we can then express it, in a healthy way. So a few of the pathways to healing. And of course, healing is a deeply personal journey. So finding the method that resonates with you is key. And below are just a few of the many pathways that you can choose to incorporate in your healing journey. And these are a few that I have personally used. First is taking Jesus to the accident. Time doesn't heal, Jesus does. Jesus does. So he already knows where the wound is. He's just waiting for you to open the door and let him be there with you. And whether that's physically or just mentally and emotionally is up to you. But I've found in my healing journey, sometimes it was necessary for me to go back to that house that I lived in and sit outside, and just see it and be there and let myself cry and then process it again. And sometimes it's just mentally going back to that place and asking God to point out, those areas, or to just be with you, whether it's your child, version of yourself, for me, it's little Thea there, or whether it was in my teenage years, my adult years, whatever it is, taking him back to the scene of the accident. And so that I can find healing and move on from it. Because a lot of times our body, as a trauma response, is still there, in that state of fear, fright, whatever it might be. We can get kind of stuck in that trauma response. So the next one would be feeding your spirit with truth, reading books, devotionals, scriptures, anything that would speak to your situation, whether it's from healing from betrayal, childhood trauma, or loss. If you fill your mind with truth, the lies have nowhere to live. So that one I believe is really important. Next is a creative outlet, which is my favorites as a creative person. Painting, drawing, poetry, crafting, cooking, music, anything that allows you to pour out your emotions in a creative way, turning your pain into something beautiful. And this is something that has been really healing for me with writing music, singing, painting. I have a painting that I did a while back behind me. Just all of these things. It really allows you to just let it out and be creative with it. And to me, it's like, if I can create something from this pain, then it wasn't for nothing, The next one would be writing the letter you'll never send. Pour out everything you never got to say to that person who hurt you. Don't hold back. This is for your eyes only and God's. Then pray over it and let it go. And write to release, not to relive. And this I did after my dad had committed suicide. And whenever I finally did start processing it, I wrote him a letter, and, he was gone. I couldn't tell him these things. So I was brutally honest. And it was one of the most healing things for me, was that process. And then to further and double down on that, you can release it in fire. Write that letter, safely burn it. Watch the smoke rise as a physical symbol of what's no longer yours to carry, or you can tear it up. There's many different ways that you can symbolically, do this. Just make sure you do it in a safe way. The next one would be to seek wise counsel. There's real strength in saying, I need help. And a trained counselor or therapist can help you see patterns, triggers, and blind spots that you might have missed on your own, and really connect those dots for you, and understand it all in a healthy way, and make sure that you don't get stuck in that phase one of feeling. So I feel like this is really important. The next one is forgiveness. And this is a difficult one, and one that I feel like is an everyday kind of thing. When you hold on to unforgiveness, you are allowing that person to have control in your life. And that's why it's so important to forgive and let it go. It's essential to healing, whether it's forgiving those who hurt you or forgiving yourself. For me, it's like I had held a lot of unforgiveness to myself, of like feeling like, I could have stopped certain things that happened, or it's obviously something I still struggle with, but it's like allowing ourselves to be forgiven as well, is a big part of this journey. And once you do this, you will finally be set free from the stronghold of unforgiveness and can move forward in finding healing. And then the next one is to move what words can't say. And movement is one of my favorites as well as a dancer. So sometimes your body needs to express what your voice can't. Dance, stretch, walk, move freely without worrying how it looks. When you move your body, you move your emotions too. And that can be really healing, and it just like allows you to just release it. Sometimes I just go for a run if I'm feeling a lot of things, and it's like run it out, and then cry it out, and then I feel better. Sometimes it's dance, sometimes it's yoga. You never know what is gonna work best for you until you try it. So even if you think you can't dance, why not give it a try? So moving on from there, and of course there's many, many more ways of healing, but it's phase 3, which is to thrive. Embracing on the journey of healing from trauma is a transformative process that I believe leads to a profound destination, which is thriving, where you not only recover, but flourish and find joy in life as it's divinely intended. Maximizing the thrive with these tips and tools. So a few ways that we can really maximize this phase is 1, to set boundaries. To maintain your ability to thrive, establishing healthy boundaries is essential. Without them, you risk falling prey to the same types of hurt repeatedly. And boundaries are not walls to keep joy out. They are gates to ensure that only what is healthy enters your life. And this is actually, I have it right here, a very great book and resource. It's called Boundaries by Dr. Townsend and Henry Cloud. And that one really helped me, especially when I was going through my divorce and all of that. And I felt really guilty for having boundaries, because I was taught my whole life basically that I wasn't allowed to have boundaries. I wasn't allowed to have boundaries to my own body, much less, anything else in my life. And there was always extreme guilt when it came to those areas. And so learning to respect myself, respect my body, respect my boundaries was important, and also to respect others. So it kind of has great perception of that perspective. I'm sorry. So the next would be find what is holding you back and eliminate it. Thriving requires confronting and overcoming subconscious fears that may hold you back. These fears, often rooted in past traumas, can prevent you from pursuing relationships, career opportunities, or personal goals. And so it's really important to identify these things, and then also identify things where you may be numbing, you may be avoiding pain, because you will see in life that we're going to have to revisit each phase over and over again to keep thriving. And then identifying the limiting beliefs that are holding you back and actually work to dismantle them. You deserve to be free from the constraints of these falsehoods. So whether it's, like I'll never be healed, or it could be the limiting belief that, no one will ever understand me or love me for who I am, or, I'm shameful, or I'm not worthy of being, treated a certain way. There's so many different limiting beliefs that come with these traumas that we experience in life. And I don't think a lot of times we realize how much they affect us and affect our lives and hold us back from truly thriving, because it's, subconscious. So next would be to find your wolf pack. And this shift is vital. And it almost kind of happens on its own sometimes, but it's very vital for sustaining your transformation. Not everyone is meant to stay in your life indefinitely, and some are there just to impart lessons of support or support you through tough times. So embracing the dynamic nature of relationships and seeking out your wolf pack is important. A supportive community akin to what a family should be, that offers protection, guidance, and mutual growth, ensuring that you have the support needed to continue thriving no matter what challenges arise. The company you keep has a profound impact on your journey. As you evolve and thrive, your social circle will likely change for one or two reasons, or maybe both. And this is why I said it likely will kind of happen on its own, because friends or family who are content with stagnation may feel threatened by your growth and naturally drift away. This has happened to me many times in my life, and is once again, sometimes when you start to speak truth and bring light to darkness, it threatens people that would like it to not be brought to light, and so you will find that as you go on your healing journey. Not everyone's going to feel comfortable with it. They may feel exposed. They may feel, uncomfortable with that growth. The second one would be that you begin to attract and connect with individuals who share your aspirations and values and who are also on the healing journey. And that's a great thing, So as you begin to find your wolf pack and that support system, you will have accountability, but also have support in these areas of your life as you're walking through this journey. Next is self-evaluation. Staying on the path of thriving requires vigilance. Life's unpredictability can sometimes knock us off course, leading us back to old habits without us even realizing it. And in full transparency, I feel like that has happened for even me. I started writing this book years ago, and then went through a lot of different experiences, and was overworking and things with my business, and I just was so overwhelmed and burnt out that I just started suppressing again, because that was my natural instinct. Was I can't deal with it. I felt like if I would start crying, it would probably never stop, and I was so detached from my body once again. And so it was kind of a blessing in disguise to get asked to speak for this conference, because I have been back on this healing journey again of trying to reopen where I was starting to close off, and reminding myself of why I started to write this book in the first place. And then whether it's journaling daily or monthly therapy sessions or accountability groups, or hangout sessions with your wolf pack, find a method that you can be healed through, but that keeps you conscious of your emotional and spiritual whereabouts. And then another note in general that I would like to say is that you can be healed and healing. So a lot of times I feel like whenever we're going through the healing journey, people like to say, "Oh, I thought you were healed from that," or blah, 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 different things like that to kind of dismiss the growth or the healing that you've had. And but you can be healed and healing. Both things can be true at the same time, because healing is not a one, stop shop. It's a continuous journey, and you may have healed from certain wounds, and then something happens again in life, and it makes you reevaluate or see that, man, maybe this is a little deeper than I thought, or maybe this is triggering a different wound that I have. And I believe that because lives are so deeply impacted by these things, it's just going to be a continuous process, and we just have to be willing to continue to heal while we are still healed. And then by embracing these three phases in the healing process and understanding that it's a cycle to be revisited throughout life, you empower yourself to live fully, resiliently, and with purpose. So we feel, we heal, we thrive, and we repeat. So that's the most important part of it, is to repeat. We're not going to get in our mind and think, no, I'm healed. I don't need to do this anymore. That's a mindset of pride. And that's exactly what the enemy uses, I believe, to keep us stuck. So accepting that it is meant to be a process that is going to be continuous and going to be repeated, so that we can continue to thrive, is really important. As we navigate through life, we will inevitably encounter pain inflicted by others. However, I want to emphasize that the phases of healing, feeling, and thriving are not linear or one-time events. They are cyclical and often overlap throughout our lives. You may find yourself in a place of growth and suddenly face a new challenge, like I did a few years back. And it's crucial during these times to avoid reverting to old patterns of suppressing emotions, which is why that accountability and finding your wolf pack and all of those things are really important. Instead, embrace the possibility that you can continue to thrive while simultaneously working through fresh wounds. These processes can indeed coexist, and each lend strength to the other. So they're a little team, if you think about it that way. So to end today, this is a little bit about what my thrive looks like. To give you an example, for me, it's turning my pain into purpose, sharing my testimony in my Feel, Heal, Thrive framework, which I'm honored to be able to do today, creating a safe space for dancers to heal through movement at my studio, Thea's Dance Academy, writing music that is real and raw, and being a voice for those who have been silenced in any way I can. And that's why a lot of the music that I will be putting out in the future, now that I'm back to being an independent artist, is about real topics, and I'm tired of being silenced, basically. And breaking the cycle for my daughter, showing her that pain doesn't define you, it refines you. And that love, honesty, and faith can rewrite the ending of any story. So it doesn't matter where mine began, it matters where it's going to end. And, that's all a part of my testimony. And if today began something new in you, as I hope it did, I'd love to hear about it. Thank you for letting me be a part of your journey. And I hope that you found something insightful or helpful today. And yeah, that's all I have.
Thea, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for being so brave and sharing your story. And
Thank you.
I know it can be easy, but as we say all the time, if one woman is impacted by your story, then our job here is done.
Yeah,
So thank you for coming on and sharing your story and your method and your healing. I too use a version of that wheel that you showed.
it's great.
Just the emotional scale, so you just kind of can. It
Yeah,
it it, it helps you to not be lost.
yeah,
Is how I feel like
yeah.
you can identify where you are,
Hmm.
and as humans, like, we just want to feel better, right? No matter where we are, we just want to feel better.
Yeah,
So I feel like you can just identify where you are, and even if you can just go one level up,
yeah,
feel better, just that little bit.
yeah.
um,
And I
changes.
I agree. I think I forgot to mention this actually too, but in light of what you're saying, I realized when I started to use the feelings wheel that on the one that I have, majority of like the opposite emotion was what I was a core like need, a core longing that I was missing. And so
Hmm.
identifying the emotion that you're feeling can also help you identify why you're feeling it, because that opposite emotion or feeling is probably linked to a core longing or something that was triggered in you. And so for me, that really helps me to like understand so that I can see a path out of it, and how to
Right,
heal. So
right. And sometimes just identifying, like, and this is exactly what you're saying, but like, am I feeling this way because of something
yeah,
that happened? Am I triggered,
yeah,
or am I here in the moment
yeah,
dealing with what I need to deal with?
yeah,
Um, and then it's so important to not like beat yourself up that you are being triggered, or that you are bringing something up, or that you're not healed from that,
it's
because
human.
healing isn't.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's not linear, right? It's not
yeah,
like, oh, I dealt with that emotion and it's done. No, you're actually constantly trying to work through that. And some things you're never actually healed from. You're just better at
yeah,
processing those emotions. But I agree that you have to feel those emotions. You can't keep suppressing them. And um, I did the same thing,
yeah,
and then it showed up in my body, right? Manifested in disease in my body from
literally,
not
yeah,
dealing with anything, right? Just sort of putting on that happy face every day and going out and doing my thing. And happy Lisa, she's out there.
yeah,
Then years later, happy Lisa couldn't walk because the pain was so bad in her body, right?
I believe
So,
it. Yeah,
yeah. So it's really important to process those emotions. Thank you so much
thank
for
you.
your message. And I love that you said it was sort of divine timing that you were here to get you back on track. And I love that. I love that when that happens. And
Good.
I'm so grateful for you being here. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. I'm grateful to be here too. So I appreciate it.
So we'll be back with Tina Hazen. So stay tuned.